Hi, I'm Randy Reid, Executive Director of the National Lighting Bureau, and welcome to our 10th Annual Lighting Forum. Today, I am joined by Colleen Harper, CEO and Executive Director of the Illuminating Engineering Society, and Christopher Knowlton, the CEO of the International Association of Lighting Designers. The name of this session is Adapting and Innovating, a conversation with IES and IALD leadership. Colleen, Christopher, welcome.
Thanks,
Hi.
Randy. Happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have both of you. And if I'm correct, you both joined these two organizations, probably the two most important organizations in our industry, during COVID. Is that correct?
That's right. I've been here for about a year and a half now.
And Christopher, you're 2 years, is that right?
Yes, just probably a year and a half, but yeah, May I think will be my 2 years in 24.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're sure fortunate to have you both in the industry, and I know you both personally, and I think you're both the right people that we need at the right time. So having said that, you started during this COVID event, and your organizations had to adjust their budgets due to the revenue shortfall from Lightfair. So Colleen, the first question is to you. What measures has IES done during your tenure to reduce cost and navigate these challenges?
I think actually a lot of our changes have been quite public. I had to lay off some staff when I first joined IES to right size the staff for the size of our organization's budget at that time, which was significantly different in a post-COVID world, given its impact on Lightfair and the lack of revenue that we were receiving from Lightfair. So that was a pretty public shift that we had to make, and that happened about 6 weeks into my tenure at IES. The other things that we're trying to do is to work with our landlord to either eliminate or at least reduce our occupancy costs. Right now, that is a significant amount for us on a monthly and then, of course, annual basis. And for an organization that has a number of full-time remote employees, in New York, not all organizations are back, 3, 4, or 5 days a week. So we're trying to offload that overhead expense, which is significant, more than $500,000 for IES on an annual basis. And then also one of the main things that we're trying to do now is reevaluate our events to make sure that they are profitable. One of the ways that IES has contributed to the industry in the past is we've had annual conference and SALC and so forth, and they've been excellent events, but they haven't actually been profitable. And for an organization like IES, we cannot afford to have events outside of Lightfair that are ending in a deficit. So for cost-cutting measures, we're really looking at reevaluating how we conduct our events and making sure that they are profitable going forward.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. And they are great events. They are gathering places for the industry. But to your point, in today's environment, you can't continue to fund that. I sure understand. All right, Christopher, same question to you.
Well, I guess that I was, I don't think you can say it's a privileged position, but I was on the IALD board as treasurer prior to taking over as CEO. So in terms of the finance side of things, I think I had a pretty good lead in to knowing what was happening. And cash burn is always, when you have a loss of revenue, cash burn is your first thing that you've got to sort out, and you've got to make sure that you're not spending more than you can afford to. So ILD went through some really pretty big changes that included staff changes. Our CEO, long-term CEO had left. We were down to a reduced staff. We got rid of our office in Chicago, so we're now fully remote. And as well as kind of controlling costs on the other programs and services that we're delivering, it's really about trying to deliver value, but in a way that doesn't lose us lots of money, which should be really simple, but often is not.
Well, sure. It's interesting, to the office space, Colleen, I've been to your office many times, and it is beautiful. And, it was remodeled by your predecessor, and I'm sure that cost a fortune, and you're still having to pay for that. And I read in Washington, D.C., government employees, on the best day, 25% of them are in the office. And so, so many people are working remote, and the world has changed. And Christopher, I happened to be in Chicago the week that office was closing a few years ago.
Wow.
And they were packing up boxes, and they were gracious enough to see me and to give me an interview. But I do think that was a very strong move, and the whole world is working remote. So these beautiful offices just, are kind of relics.
I think
Colleen, I wish you well on that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's a really great investment if you have a staff located in one geographical area, and and then the staff is willing to get together on a regular basis. But now, with the world being so remote post-COVID, my outlook or philosophy is that I want to hire the best person for the job, not the best person who happens to be in New York. And so the organizations are more and more like completely dispersed, not even just in the United States, but certainly like around the world, to the extent that you can make that work. And so I do think that having a beautiful office space in New York is really nice, and it is a good investment in certain cases. We just happen to be in a very different world now. So I'm hoping that we can work something out and reduce that expense.
We've talked a little bit about expenses, and I think you're both on a great path there. Let's shift and talk about revenue. And Colleen, I'll start with you. Can you share with our audience some of your new revenue streams?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thanks. So one of the things that I did earlier this year, just after some natural staff attrition, was hire a director of marketing and business development with the main focus of his job being establishing new revenue streams or strengthening ones that we already have. So that was something that we were able to do, again, just from some natural staff shifts. So he's been with us since the start of April.
And what is his name?
His name is Graham Kirk.
Okay.
So a few of the things that we've been doing since Graham joined us, and this was kind of in our plans already, but just having Graham on staff and having someone who is so revenue focused has helped like bring some of these things to fruition, or at least get us to where we are now. In 2024, you're going to see IES come out with an education tour. We're going to go to 5 cities. This is like 2024 does not have light fare for the first time, I believe, ever, at least not counting the COVID years. So we figured, like, how can we connect with our members in a way that light fare really helped us with, and also generate some revenue. This is not going to be like this big trade show, anything like that, but it's going to be something like where we feel really strongly that we know certain topics well, because we are a standards development organization, and we want to go out and meet with people more locally and teach them about certain timely topics. Yeah. So we're trying to hit different parts of the country, of course. Like if we were to have 5 cities on the East Coast, that doesn't really get us out to where our members are. So we're definitely going to be in the DC area. We're going to do Pacific Northwest, I believe. Where our research symposium is actually also in 2024, and that's going to be out in the Pacific Northwest as well, because that's in collaboration with the Department of Energy. So, and we're working with them. So they're helping us kind of identify a location and topic and all of those types of things. So that's going to be up in that part of the country as well. So we're trying to hit the Midwest. I do not recall exactly what the city is, but we are trying to, our goal is to have it be more accessible for members. Not everyone will be able to drive to one, but our goal is to hit the different parts of the country so that it would be, in theory, a less expensive experience than having to travel for an annual conference or a light fare or something like that.
Right. Okay. And again, we're talking about revenue. So you will be charging for this.
We will be charging for this. We have an excellent partner in Sonepar, which they will be helping us with the facilities so that we don't have to have a lot of overhead or risk associated with the events from an IES expense standpoint. Brilliant
idea. Instead of getting a Marriott marquee somewhere,
right,
which is going to cost a fortune and have risk and hotel nights, go with one of your partners like Sonepar.
That's exactly right. Yep. And they have facilities around the country. So they're an excellent partner, and they are really helping us also determine which facilities would make sense for us. We're going to have other sponsors, we hope. So it's going to be not just that we have a facility partner, but that we will also have other manufacturers and companies want to be there, depending on the topic. And then we will charge. It won't be an astronomical amount, but because it's supposed to be a revenue generator, we will have a registration fee attached.
Okay, that sounds very exciting, Colleen. All right, Christopher, same question to you.
I feel like that's such a lot to go after. I guess our strategy is kind of broken down into 2 parts. One is to review the stuff that we're currently doing. So doubling down on the kind of commitment to light fare and supporting that. We saw some of those changes happening this year, so that hopefully seeds, good growth for the future for the show. Enlighten Europe happened last year, and we're going to be back next year in London. So Europe is going to be on an annual cycle. And it's really key to sort of mention the fact that as well as managing the expenses, we're also increasing the revenue on those endeavors. So previously, our conferences never made money. They were always a loss-making enterprise. Whereas now we've got them back to at least break even, if not a minimal amount of profit. And so as we start to tweak the format and work out how we improve the margin on those, that helps us meet our mission, as well as kind of keeping us with some revenue coming in, or some positive revenue coming in. The second part of the strategy is the new stuff, which is we have our new learning platform, Learn, the Learning Education Resource Network, coming next year. We're just in the process of building that out. We've spent this year rebuilding our internal database and systems that will power that. And that will be a way of us reaching our global membership. IELD's membership is 60% overseas from the US. So it's really important about being able to.
I want to understand. I got a timeout. So
okay,
your membership is 60% US?
No, overseas.
Okay. So I did not know that.
Yeah, so 60% over outside of the US.
Okay. Congratulations. It didn't used to be that way, right?
Yeah.
You've really expanded globally.
Yeah, and it's really important because lighting designers are operating around the world. And I think one of the things that's really interesting when you look at, say, IES and IELD, you say, well, why would I be a member of one versus the other? And it's really important to kind of articulate the differences between the two organizations, which is that IES, as I understand it, Colleen, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's really about research and standard setting, and that is that the research is feeding into the standardization process and the recommendation. What IELD is doing is providing a community and professional guidance to lighting designers. And so there's always that tension between, if you're not providing me the code information when I'm working in India or Australia or Japan, why would I be a member of IELD? And so that's where we are really doubling down our focus on the things that are international in essence. So design education doesn't really matter where you're from. It's not specific to a particular code that you've got to comply with. It's really about focusing on the things that are cross-border, essentially. So acting locally through our regions and chapter network, but the stuff that we're delivering headquarters level essentially is really about the stuff that can be applied across the world. And it also allows us to generate that content from different perspectives, which is kind of cool, that you get input from people who have a completely different way of working or a different structure around how you deliver a project, inputting to that information. So that's going to be a very exciting development next year. And all of those efforts are really in the aim ultimately of increasing the member value proposition, which is IELD probably has had a pretty weak value proposition in the past, or it certainly has become weak. And as we see newer members coming to the association, they really want a tangible return for the transaction. Like, the younger members are like, great, I give you my dollars, what do I get in return? And so we really have to address that if we want the association to fill from the bottom up. We have some incredible professionals and fellows at the top of the organization, but some of those are going to start retiring if they haven't already. And we need to be really filling it in at grassroots level. So it's really important that we address those things, and that hopefully allows IELD to grow. And with that comes the revenue and the stability that we need outside of depending on just one revenue source of like that.
Sure. Well, Christopher, you said a lot there. And let me just go back. I think you asked if a person should join IES or IELD, and the answer is both, right?
Obviously.
Yes.
They could be members of both. But Christopher, I was shocked by the success of the Enlighten Europe conference in Berlin. Do you know offhand how many people were there?
I think we had about 370.
Okay, that just absolutely blew me away, because I did not know you were so strong international. And I was in Poland not too long ago, and they told me they have one independent lighting designer in the entire country of Poland. The manufacturers do all the design work, but different countries do things different. And I just was shocked by the success of the Berlin. Can you talk for a minute about the BAMF conference and how that went?
I mean, cold outside, but warm inside and of spirit, I think would be fair to say. Beautiful surroundings, and some great content, as always. The Enlighten Americas conference has always had a strong following. It's a really great opportunity to get people together, for both a social component, but also a lot of great quality education in a kind of informal setting. And it was really wonderful to see everyone back. It kind of almost starting to feel like the pandemic is behind us. Not quite, but we are starting to edge back to that sense of normality.
Sure. And I do hear as companies merge and lighting designers get together, a lot of those discussions happen at the IALD conference. They're really getting together, getting to know each other on a personal basis. Now, what about Asia?
That took place in November, a couple of weeks after the Enlighten Americas conference. And they were back in London for the European conference, and the Americas location is yet to be revealed.
Okay, excellent. Well, congratulations on that. And again, I think those are wonderful. All right, Colleen, kind of wrapping up here. Anything in your pipeline that you've got going on that you'd like to share?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think one of the things that we are most excited about, well, there are two things. One is our also global expansion and at least awareness. We have been at a number of international events over the past few years, and people have clamored for our standards and also our lighting library. So we're hoping to increase awareness of that as a resource, knowing that it launched kind of at a very interesting time right before COVID, which ended up being excellent because everyone wanted things electronically, but it was also kind of lost in the mix in some ways because there was so much happening and so much moving to the internet or to electronic distribution. So we're hoping to really do a push on that, and make sure that people are aware of the lighting library as a resource, especially internationally. We've had a lot of interest from the Middle East specifically. We are launching, or we will soon be revealing, to use Christopher's word, some more international sections. We have been approached by a number of countries that are very eager to have an IES section, or at least for IES to be collaborating with an organization that already exists in their country, to have there be more of a partnership there to provide our membership benefits to their country members, and have there be, of course, a mutually beneficial partnership and arrangement there. One of the things, Randy, that you and I have talked about recently, or at least that you and Brianne Wilcock have talked about, is our sustainability efforts, like the circular economy and so forth. And so there are a few things there that I wanted to mention, if this is an appropriate time.
Sure,
okay.
Absolutely, please.
So we are actually collaborating with a few industry leaders on this. We have collaborations with PNNL and also the Greenlight Alliance. And we have a new sustainability document, which is LP10, coming out. It specifically mentions circular economy, and that should be out this year, by the end of this year. And so our sustainability committee is exceptionally dedicated. We'll have a virtual symposium on sustainability in 2024. And so we really feel like we're on the right track with such a timely, important topic to the industry. And we're thrilled that we have the ability to work with other very knowledgeable partners on this, with so much coming out even before the end of this year, but then also going into 2024.
Well, I'm so excited to hear about that, because when I talk to a lot of the lighting designers, they're very interested in that, as are architects and engineers. And then you talk about your international push. You do have kind of a secret weapon there at IES, and that's Mark Lean. And
yes.
His talk, The Future of Lighting, is one of the most sought out talks globally. And I know that just really creates a ton of interest in the society when he does speak. So congratulations.
He is an extraordinary advocate and representative of IES. I mean, people treat him with good reason as a rock star in the US and abroad. And we are so incredibly fortunate to have Mark on our team representing IES, again, both domestic and internationally, and he will continue to make those trips and speak about the future of the industry on behalf of IES. And so you will continue to see him quite a bit going forward. We're really thrilled and pleased that he continues to be a part of our community.
Okay, that's great. All right, Christopher, how about you? Do you have anything in the pipeline that you want to share? Some things that you're working on?
really, we're working on the Learn program, that's a big deal. That's really like developing into what we want to be a campus. ILD really needs to be a place where if you need resources or you want to know information, that's where you should go. And then even if we don't have it necessarily, we can then direct you to the different organizations. So in a kind of collaborative manner, that's where we're trying to get to.
One of the things I should have mentioned as far as partners, not when it comes to sustainability, but I will say I really enjoy working with Christopher and ILD. And I think that we have a ton of opportunity in front of us for our two organizations to work together. I've been told by a few people, including from some manufacturers, that IES and ILD have not been as collaborative in the past as it seems that we are now. And I think that perception is reality in this case. We are really committed to working together, to making sure that we each provide to the industry what people are looking for, no matter what it is. If you're a researcher or designer, an engineer, manufacturer, a contractor, an architect, and interior designers, that we have what you need, at least between the two of us, and that we really want to make sure that IES and ILD succeeds and is sustainable going into the future. So I'm very excited too. I think it's very important to say from IES's standpoint anyway, that we really value our partnership and collaboration with ILD, and that we think and believe firmly that there's a lot of opportunity for our organizations going forward.
Okay. I would definitely echo that. And what's really interesting is I think that around the world, there are a lot of organizations who work in lighting and standard setting and whatever. And like even Europe is just in itself a complex space. And what's been really noticeable is the attitude or the kind of desire to be more collaborative between the organizations is there in a way that it was not previously. Like lots of organizations who are maybe in allied fields, much more open to that sense of we are stronger if we work together than having a kind of adversarial, competitive approach to things. Because as long as we all know what we're doing and we're not trying to do the same thing and duplicating efforts, then actually we can achieve more if we work together, which is one of the nicest things I think that's come from the remote part of the distributing all the staff remotely, is that you also end up with this kind of much more like, we'll just jump on a Zoom call and work it out, and it doesn't need to be a sit down meeting and whatever. So I think there's a lot of good things that can come from collaborating. I mean, design practice is a collaboration from start to finish. So it really only follows that we behave in the same way at an organizational level.
Well,
and Randy, can I add one more thing? I'm sorry. It's a little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to throw a teaser of sorts out there. We are also, along with Peter Hugh and the DEIR committee, we are going to be launching a new initiative from IES in the next few weeks, certainly before the end of the year. And it is an effort to bring more of the lighting community together, lighting organizations together, to work in the spirit of inclusion, to all work together to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. When Christopher just said something about duplicating efforts, it made me think of this really important initiative. We want to make sure we all have our own committees and initiatives when it comes to DE&I work, but to also have this safe space for organizations to come together and learn from each other, related specifically to the lighting industry. So that will be something that we will be coming out with. It's not necessarily like a revenue generator or anything like that, but more just a service to the community and making sure that we're all moving in the same direction on such an important topic.
Well, I think the collaboration is absolutely wonderful. If you think about it, you both started essentially at the same time. You were both thrown in the fire at the same time. You both had kind of the same huge issue, and that is the lack of light fare revenue, and you were faced with kind of a crisis that you had to tackle head on. And I think back in my day with when I was very active in IES, I would say the executive directors, that was the title at the time, of IALD and IES, would meet at the light fare board meeting 3 or 4 times a year, and that was really the only time that those two collaborated, as far as I recall. So it's great that the two of you have a great friendship and are doing this, because who benefits? The industry.
We agree. I agree. I won't speak.
We agree.
Okay. Well, guys, I want to thank you for this. I think it was excellent. And now we will turn the session over for questions. Please do use the Q&A button to ask your questions, and we'll get started. Okay, welcome to everyone, and we will open the floor for questions in just a second. But before we do, I have one question, Christopher, I'd like to ask you. And in both Banff and Dubai, you and I discussed a vote that IALD is taking. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what's going on with that? Because I think it's very important.
So the board initiated a task force some near on 10 years ago. And that task force led to a series of subsequent groups that were looking at particular questions. And the questions that they were looking at is, how is lighting design as a profession evolving, and how is it practiced around the world? And the conclusion from that work, which was put together by a really significant number of very experienced people, was that currently IALD uses a business model as part of its criteria for membership. And understanding the way in which our practice is changing, we have put together proposals which will change some of the requirements for membership. So essentially working towards being a more open and accessible organization, not just in the US, but around the world. And so some of those changes, because they are significant, require changes to our bylaws and to our code of ethics. And so at the moment, that is out for a vote for the next 6 weeks of our voting members.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing those results. And Colleen, if I may ask you a question, we obviously filmed this late last year, and it was before you had some of those cities lined up for your education tour. Can you tell us where this is going to kick off and when?
Yes, absolutely. So our tour is going to kick off in Nashville on May 30th. Yes, very intentional choice, Randy, just for you. But as I mentioned in the video, our facility partner Sanapar has identified a specific facility there, and we wanted to hit a number of different cities. So that is the first of 5, and it will go through the summer. That was also, the dates were intentional so as not to conflict too much with other events that may be happening either by our sections or with the broader industry.
Colleen and Christopher, what is your level of optimism, pessimism of our industry in 2024?
I'd be happy to
That's a
let Christopher
softball
take
one,
that.
right? It's just a softball one to start off.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. I think for the industry at large, I don't know that I'm the best. It would be nice to have someone like Mark Lean on. In that case, I think for IES specifically, there are a number of things that I'm extremely optimistic about because of a few initiatives that we're launching, some of which I discussed in the video that Randy has already asked about, like our education tour. We're going to be publishing some significant standards this year. We're going to be doing education around those standards. I think there's a lot of optimism around changes related to IES. The industry at large, my understanding is that some of the events that are taking place this year, of which IES is not a part, for example, Light Middle East, where Christopher and Randy just were, that was very vibrant and exciting. And so I think that there is, it's 2024, COVID hit in 2020. It seems like there is now some momentum and a new sense of energy and excitement that exists that hasn't really been here since I joined the organization in 2022, and we were really feeling like we were getting out of this COVID lull and really tough hit, I guess is the best way to say that. So the industry at large is a little bit harder for me to comment on, but for IES, there is a lot of optimism based on some large changes that are taking place really at the start of this year, and then the impacts of that will be felt through the rest of this year and beyond.
I'll offer something anecdotally, which is the best thing about my job is I get to speak to people all around the world, and they're all working in different industries in construction. So whether that's hospitality or retail or any number of other industries, and the headwinds are definitely getting stronger in certain parts of the world, and in other parts it's really booming. And I think you can really start to see that some of the areas which were, from a design perspective, certainly export markets to places like the Middle East, you can really see, I think, in the last 5-10 years that places like the Middle East are now setting themselves up as their own design hub. So all of the American firms and the European firms that used to do export design to those places are finding that actually, unless they have a presence there, the work is not going to be paying you to get on a plane and go and do that work every couple of weeks. So that's kind of having an impact on different areas. And so in certain places where the economies are pretty buoyant and construction is full steam ahead, if you look at places like India, you know, their construction industry is on the up. And when you look at other places, perhaps it's not quite so gung-ho. And also we have a range of new challenges, things like if we want to be carbon neutral or net zero, we can't just keep knocking things down and building new things. So the type of work that's being done or thought about is kind of changing, which is both an opportunity and a challenge from an economic perspective.
Christopher and Colleen, what are some key dates that we should all be aware of in 2024?
Shall I go first? we'll alternate. So some key dates for us is Light and Building in March 3rd to the 8th. On the 7th of March, we're hosting a day of content at the show in Hall 3.1. So if you're around, come and see us. And then the other two kind of big dates for us are 21st and 22nd of June for Enlighten Europe, which is in my home city of London. So any of you that wish to come, we're more than happy to welcome you here. And Enlighten Americas will be just outside San Diego in Rancho Bernardo, 17th to the 19th of October later this year.
Right. And for IES, we have our research symposium in conjunction with the DOE that's taking place in Portland, May 15th to 16th. Our education tour, as mentioned earlier, starts May 30th in Nashville. Our annual conference this year is being held in New York, and that's going to be August 15th to 17th. And then our Street and Area Lighting Conference is going to be in Atlanta, and that's September 22nd through 25th.
And back to the Banff one, a little more detail about that. Were you pleased with it, and financially, was it successful?
I was very pleased with it. It was, it's always slightly nerve-wracking going to a destination like Banff. It's, for a lot of people, requires a bus from the airport or kind of some other form of transport to get, you know, it's not next to an airport, it's a little way away. But honestly, we had the highest number of companion passes bought. I think everyone was coming on a little trip of a lifetime to go and see things, and the number of pictures of kind of really beautiful places was incredible. But actually, even like aside from being set in the most kind of magnificent scenery, we had a huge turnout and we had really good content. People were very pleased. We looked at the scoring afterwards. It was good. And we finally managed to get our conferences to turn a profit, which both for Europe and for America is a really significant change. They used to be run at a loss, and we're now at a point where we're just above break even. So we still have some work to do, but hopefully starting to pay dividends for everyone.
Well, congratulations on that. Okay, Alan Lewis has raised his hand. So Alan, I'm going to, you're unmuted, so please ask your question.
Kind of a little different tack. Several organizations of which I'm a member have just this year gone from changing their publications from print to digital. And in some cases, they offer the option of a print for people who want to keep it, but now charge you extra for it. And the question is, and I'm not familiar with IALD's publications, but certainly IES, I'm very familiar. And is there anything going on looking at that as perhaps as an option, as a significant cost-saving measure?
Hi, Alan. Thank you for your question. This is something that we've been talking about as a way to reduce expenses, specifically for LD+A, which is our #1 member benefit. It's always rated our #1 member benefit. So we are mindful of that and how reducing the print may impact member satisfaction potentially and so forth. The other thing with print publications is the circulation really matters for print advertisers, and we do receive a significant print advertising revenue is a significant revenue stream for us. And so all of these things are kind of on the table just in this, but in the sense of if we make such a significant shift in switching LD&A very specifically to a digital publication, how would that impact other pieces of our business and other pieces of revenue, such as membership and, membership dues revenue or advertising revenue and so forth. So all of these things are on the table because the world is becoming so digital. I just learned about 2 major magazines, I think Popular Science and Sports Illustrated, that are both struggling themselves because people just aren't buying the print versions of those magazines anymore. So as I said, everything is on the table and we are considering all of our options, including what LD&A could look like as a fully digital publication.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. And then Selma has a question. Colleen, this is for you. Is the IES education tour based in the US only, or are other regions, will it be in other regions as well?
This is an excellent question, Selma. The answer for 2024 is that it will be in the US only. And then going forward, we're hoping that this is a blueprint of sorts to be able to replicate it in future years based on whatever the timely topic is for that year, in which case we would potentially go to other areas of the world. In 2024, it is just US.
Okay, very good. Here's a question from Mary Beth Gotti. Any thoughts on Light Fair 2025?
I will say, as maybe a teaser of sorts, like I also did in the video, that Christopher and I have been working very diligently already on how we can make Light Fair 2025 an absolutely must-attend event. And so I think that you will see things, and certainly in the first half of this year, that will get people very excited to attend in person next year.